Greetings, you guys. It's been a long time, and I see that for some reason, everything looks crazy. My hair, the lighting, everything. It must be because I'm not used to this anymore. I'm not used to going live. So we'll have to see if I actually can go live. It's a hair wash day, so my hair is a little crazy. Let's see if somebody comes in here and if this actually works for a change. If you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Tidkemeyer. I wrote for Pathos for some years. I wrote about fundamentalist religion. I wrote about things like the Duggars. I wrote about Quiverfull. My column was called No Longer Quivering. So I'm looking just to make sure that this works, because I kept contacting them and saying, hey, I need some guidance here, because I was having such issues with going live. Every time I went live, it would do crazy things. Oh, and it worked. Oh my God, it worked. It finally worked. Okay, let me shut down all the other windows so that I can keep talking. Jan, Lisa, I am alive. Yes, I am alive and well. I'm actually doing really well. I went out today and I went swimming for the first time since January. For the first time since January, it's actually well enough to get in the pool and do a full workout. Look, I actually have some sun on my body for a change. So I'm doing well. Lisa, I know that. And I just have to say a couple of things about the Duggars and her and everybody else, because I'm sitting back and I'm watching everybody, and I mean everybody, read these. Well, I finally got a little sun. I don't look like a shut-in. Oh, thank you, Jan. Thank you. I've been watching this all week going, what the hell is going on here? Because I understand that, oh, come on. There's something I don't like about my ring light. I don't always, it's either too bright or not bright enough. So these documents were released, and I am really shocked that the courts completely released the documents of the Duggar girls' depositions, because they had to talk about some quite painful things. Everybody knows what their brother did to them in the larger realm. Nobody needs to know the details. Nobody really needs to know the details of how those girls feel, what kind of therapy they have been through, how they feel about their parents. That is really none of our business. I'm just going to come right out and say that. So one of the things that I cannot stand about modern culture, I guess you can tell I'm really getting old, because this bugs the crap out of me when I see this crap. When I see these things going on over and over and over again, and I see people without a box of Kleenex making hay over the misery of other people. That stuff should stay private, no matter how old a person is, in my humble opinion. Lisa, I err towards that because of my time working at a residential treatment center for children. I didn't do transports back and forth to court very often, but I did do them a couple of times. And let me tell you, all of that is completely confidential, sacrosanct. You just didn't talk about such things, and they definitely did not get released. The Duggar girl releases were bad enough, but when they released the Holt girl's testimony, it was just, she's not a public figure. That should stay private, particularly since she's not a public figure. I can see the interest in the Duggar girls thing. And while I think the releaser is wrong, and the people who are reading this, who are making this they're making this the focus of their YouTube channels. And it's not just Without a Box of Kleenex that's doing this. This is other YouTubers in the cater community. Somebody called them the cater community. I tend to think of the community more as the, what was it that Toad called us that I laughed over a couple of weeks ago? I have to think about it. He called the community the Pitchfork Brigade. And I like the Pitchfork Brigade because it kind of feels like that. It kind of feels like we're going up that mountain to where the monster lives, and we all have pitchforks and lit torches, and we're determined to take the monster out for the community good. I worked at a subsidized federal daycare, tons of foster care kids, so much abuse, original home. It was horrible. Lisa, that is exactly right. I worked at that residential treatment center. We had children there that had been used to film CP that went to court a number of times. And you would just read through the files. I used to do auditing where I went in, I looked at all the treatment records, I looked at the documents to make sure every T was crossed, every I was dotted, that black ink only was used on the documents. Believe it or not, there's this long list of rules that you have for how these things have to be documented if you expect to have Medicaid pay for it. And we had a lot of kids there that were just abandoned, had been snatched out of their families' homes, had undergone more abuse at the hands of pornographers and all of those. Well, the Depp papers, Johnny Depp and them, I've been hearing criticism all day of people saying them. I've been hearing criticism all day of people saying, well, look at the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. That is public. They're filming it. If we can see that, why can't we look at the papers for the Duggar girls? Well, a couple of big reasons. The biggest reason, I think, is that Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, before this trial, my understanding is there was some jockeying with the judge and between the lawyers about whether this would be in public or in private. I would have preferred that he'd done it private. Why? Because I don't care who it is. The breakup of a marriage, these kind of tales of miracle, ABUSA, I can't even spell tonight. They're just tragic all the way around. Nobody wins. And Amber Heard wanted it to be public. It was a bad decision for her. I think she has torpedoed her career and her life. Who would have a relationship with her after finding out she had BPD? This is not going to work out well for her. She can't even act on the stand enough to get tears to come out when she's talking about the ABUSE that she claims she suffered from Johnny Depp. And it's a little bit different. They, hey, Kentucky girl, they decided they were going to do this publicly. That's what came out of what decided beforehand. This would be a public trial. It would be televised. It was agreed upon ahead of time. They are celebrities. So them being celebrities, agreeing to have a public trial is way different than the Duggar girls suing the media outlets that outed them and asking for the paperwork to be under wraps, which I think it should have stayed that. Not even Duggar, the Twitter on her. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. She thought she was a great actress and pull off victimhood. She's a horrible actress. Lisa, she sure proved it. She proved it horribly. She showed that she can't act around a paper bag. And what was it with those cocaine bump looking things she was doing? I mean, we all saw her pull the tissue to her nose and do like this. If that wasn't someone trying to get something up their nose, I don't know what. Horrible acting, yes. So that's what the difference is. Even though I'm having people left and right telling me, oh, there's no difference, no difference, no difference. There is a boatload of difference. Those girls were teenagers. I mean, those girls were underage when this happened to them, from ages 5 on up. And we've always had shield laws in the U.S. when that kind of ABUSE happens to kids. Always. That's what blows my mind, that they released all this information. Yes, Lisa, it sure did. I said, why is she snorting coke in Why is she snorting coke in court? I couldn't get over that. I understand eating that caffeine bump or that whatever bump. I don't understand snorting coke on the stand, assuming that's what it was. And I don't know. This is just my opinion. These are my opinions. I just know what I saw, what I think I saw, nobody else, but everybody else. Yes, I feel sorry for Kaylee Holt because Kaylee Holt is not a celebrity. The Duggar girls may now be celebrities due to the actions of their parents. What happened to them when they were underage. So I don't think that any of the depositions should have been publicized at all. They should have never been released because they're talking about abuse that occurred under the age of 18. Yeah, and Kaylee did get the bum deal. And there are some people that I had basically kind of not negative feelings, but kind of like flat feelings for. I didn't like them or dislike them, that I have decided that I don't care for at all through this deal because they're making hay while the sun is shining and screeching out the name of Kaylee Holt and reading her testimony. Why on earth anybody thinks they have to read this testimony and try to interpret it, and they're not Emily D. Baker or on civil law? They're the only two that I really listen to who do legal documents now because everybody else gets it wrong. It's supposed to have been a really strong mint or scent to make her tear up. It looked like a hit of snow. Too weird. Lisa, unless a drug tester, I don't think we're ever going to get an idea what that was for sure. Maybe she's snorting Adderall for all we know. Kaylee did get the bum deal. She's the one I feel sorry for. So all these caterers, they're making hay out of this, and they're trying to come up with more and more hits. They're reading these documents. They're reading it in some type of an attempt to garner hits. It's disgusting. I'm just going to come out and say it. It's like carry on. It's like those vultures that strip corpses. You know how in the States they go around and they pick up the corpses, the squashed animals off the road or by the side of the road every now and then? We don't have that here. And I got to see one couple of years ago. A cow was hit by a guy on a motorcycle. And what happened was it killed the motorcycle rider and it killed the cow. Here, they don't have anybody picking up any kind of road kills. So I got to see for the first time in my life how quickly a band of vultures can strip a cow of all meat, flesh, and hide. And you would be surprised how quickly they manage to take that cow to bones by the side of the road. So I'm looking at people that are making these long videos, who are reading the documents, who are going over every moment of the despair and pain of those poor girls. And just like, I'm looking at them like they're those vultures. They're those vultures. They're feasting on that carcass, that dead carcass. Yeah, here's the thing. How about well, Amy, I'm going to argue with that in a second. I'll tell you why. How about we leave people who are assault victims alone? We don't read their testimony aloud. We don't do anything in that if it's a child, if they have been abused when they were children, because you're not doing anybody any good. You're just making it seem as petty and stupid as anything being read off by TMZ. I'm not even sure TMZ would go this far. You're just not doing anybody any good. You're not fighting any cults. You're not standing up for the victims. You're re-victimizing the victims when you reread their statements of the CP that happened to them, the CA that happened to them, all of that. It's no longer cool to do that. I'm going to start calling people out for this crap because it just is just disgusting. Oh, hey, Lisa. Yeah. So I'm glad that you find my voice reason to come because I feel kind of amped up tonight. And the thing with Josh, I have to say this, Amy. I used to go to an old Quiverfull church at the time all this went down with Josh and his sisters. They were trying to get a TV show at the time The family was trying to get into politics. So on some of the prayer lists, the national ones that we were all on, and some of the other ones where all these Quiverfull families and IBLP families would get together, they actually talked about, please pray for an Arkansas family of X amount of kids that is dealing with persecution from DHS, CPS for something, for a slight mistake by their teenage son. So we had actually heard rumor of this years back before it ever hit the news media. And the only reason this ever hit the news media and didn't just stay in the Quiverfull, well, here I call it the, you know how on Gilligan's Island they had coconut phones? It was the coconut phone. The coconut phones we have here, I call them. When people gossip here, I say it's the coconut phone going on. It's the coconut phone. They were these. You would be surprised how small of a world Quiverfull is, and these kind of IBLP and these different religions. You would be shocked how tight the circles are. And we all knew about Josh well before it ever came out. Well before it was ever released. It was rumored about for years. When the Oprah thing went down, we all heard about it. And so it was an open secret. It was one of those open secret things that everybody gossiped about. And I wasn't surprised it came out. I was just surprised it took long enough. Yeah, I saw that, Jan. And the thing is, the Holts, one of the things that went down that was rumored about that has never ended up in anywhere is that Josh had been volunteering as a teenager for Jim Holt's state Senate run. And this was back when he was in courtship with the Holt daughter. Jim Holt caught him, the rumor mill says, caught him looking at corn on the campaign computers, fired him from the campaign, and the courtship was ended. And there was a lot of muttering after that point about Josh being the sin in the camp. That was actually a term that was used, sin in the camp, sin in the camp. And that was the moment where the Holts and the Duggars parted ways. Because on top of everything else, and like I said, a lot of people knew about what he had done to his sisters. He had been caught in church with a young girl at one point. There had been incident after incident after incident after incident after incident with Josh from the time he was a young teen. He just couldn't keep his hands to himself, apparently, from everything I'm hearing. And we all knew a lot of it. Hey, Ashley. So this was no big surprise to anybody who was in the fringes of Quiverfull or on the edges and hearing this stuff. It was just a surprise to the brainwashed masses that were watching the TV show and going, this could not be happening. When the first trouble they had with Josh, Jim Bob and Michelle had a choice. They could have taken Josh to a legitimate therapist, somebody that treated teenagers for sexual addictions and weird things, and had him treated. And we would possibly be not where we are now with this whole thing. Josh might be a productive member of society, happy with his wife, if that step had been taken when it was needed. But because Jim Bob and Michelle live in a CULT world, oh, did you? Oh, because they live in that kind of world, there's no such thing as therapy. Therapy is thought to be a tool of the devil. Nobody ever goes to the therapist. Nobody goes to the psychiatrist. Nobody takes psychiatric drugs. I've talked about this a number of times because my own dear husband had years and years of depression that would not lift. He was told over and over it was demonic and that he was demonic for going to try and get treatment from various therapists and things. It was just nasty for years at our old church. He was blamed for his own condition, told that he was selfish. You know what it was? He had a parathyroid tumor, a series of them on his parathyroid glands. We had the growths removed and the depression lifted. So that was after years, and I mean literal years of he being told it was demonic. So poor Josh had no chance whatsoever. His parents created the super focus on sex by their attitudes, what they taught him. Purity culture had a part in that. The whole purity culture, rape culture thing that goes on in that type of evangelical religion inculcated this in him. It was doubled down on in the home. They didn't take any real action. So this is what you get. All you have to do to make sure somebody does something is to make it super forbidden all the time and talk about how forbidden it is. I mean, Josh can't claim that he didn't know what he was doing. When you partition a hard drive to get around the net nanny thing, you got issues. I was fascinated. My mom and I always thought that no one is that happy all the time. We never thought it'd be something like this. Actually, I can tell you all about that fake happiness. As a woman, you are encouraged to smile, have no problems. You're not allowed to complain about a thing. If you get up and your back hurts, you're not allowed to say, oh, my back hurts today. I'm going to just take it easy and lay around on my heating pad. There's like, nope, up and at 'em, smile, firmly plastered on your face. And you do your, what I always call 10,000 rules of Melmac. You just do all your shit. You just go out there and you bake your bread, you homeschool your kids, you do all of that. And you're not allowed to have anything but a smile on your face and a fake soft voice like this. You're thought to be supposed to be quiet and gentle and kind all of the time. Now, this is really funny about that whole voice thing is when I went to Johns Hopkins back, 10 years ago, maybe, and went through occupational therapy for my asthma to learn how to breathe through the attacks. One of the things they impressed upon me is the need to talk in a much lighter, softer tone like this. They said if I talk like this all the time, I would have far less problems with my asthma shutting off my vocal cords. Screw that. That is not my natural voice. I never could accomplish it. I couldn't accomplish it in Quiverfull very long. I couldn't accomplish it when they said it would help my vocal cords. This is me. This is me, warts and all, and this is how it is. So that Michelle Duggar thing is a very fake voice. It's an artificial one that a lot of women in that particular CULT use because it's what's promoted as godly. You're supposed to be quiet and still. You're supposed to be smiling and encouraging. You're supposed to be all these different things. And if you do all these things, if you submit right and enough, and you do all these things, you're promised that your kids will turn out perfectly. Your husband will adore you and treat you like a princess. I can't wait for the books from the kids of all these TLC shows, Sister Wives, Duggars, Plaths, etc., once they leave the church. Lisa, I can't either. The first, and I keep saying this over and over, the first Duggar child to write the book will be the one to get the big advance. Everybody else, it won't be quite the same. It won't, nobody will get. I'm praying that Jill writes a book. Jill Duggar-Dillard, I'm calling you out. Please write your book. I would buy that in a heartbeat. I would pay $14.99 on Kindle to read it. And I think of all of them, she would probably be the only one with enough perspective to actually be truthful about a lot of things. If Jessa wrote it, it would just be, everything was perfect, la, 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 la. I thought that Josh's sentencing was in May, but truthfully, I haven't really kept up with that. I've just got a lot of stuff going on in my real life right now, including a daughter who's going to marry in something less than a month. So I haven't really watched. Now, I have been keeping up with the Without a Crystal Ball courtroom dates. May 25th sentencing. Of course, my son's birthday. What a great birthday present for Mama. I'm eager to see Josh be sentenced and be put in whatever federal jail he's going to. I suspect he's going to be going to Phoenix because they actually do have a sex offenders section where they isolate these guys so they don't get killed by the rest of the population. Yeah, I am excited for her wedding. Kentucky girl, I've been waiting for this for over 10 years. They've been together a long time. I've just been waiting for them to get married. Last year, they bought a house together, and here we are. My daughter is kind of funny. She's very organized. She's like, okay, I'm going to do this by this year. By this year, I'm going to have my master's degree. Do this. I'm going to work this job for something. I'm going to move here. I'm going to do this. And I'll be darned if she hasn't done it. If she hasn't done it. When I was there in July last year, we were expecting a proposal that week, but it didn't happen. But apparently it did in January. So if he was a few months later than she wanted him to be, that's okay. Renegade Jill. Yes, I do nothing but support Renegade Jill. Kentucky, how are these kids so organized? I don't know. I guess since I left Quiverfull, I'm not the organizational dynamo I used to be. And I had friends that made me look lazy in my organizational skills, and I was much more organized back then. Thank you, Lisa. I can't wait. He's already like a son to me, so this is just confirming it. This is just making it legal. So I've got to circle back around to Josh and his sentencing and everything. There is not a thing in this world wrong with talking about Josh. Josh has been in the national news for this. I don't think that rehashing the video he watched in great detail is helpful. I don't think explaining what he did to his victims is helpful. None of that is helpful. But knowing that he is going down and his father has lied and tried to throw up roadblocks all along Josh's entire life so that no one could criticize Josh or take any real action is rather disturbing. I never dreamed that this would be the thing that took down the Duggars. Even as I knew about it, I figured that it would never come out. Oh, so superficiency isn't always the best for your soul. It's the Mormon women of Utah. Lisa, yes, ask any Quiverfull mother too. One of the things that happens when you're in a Quiverfull type situation and you're surrounded by super high achiever organizers and you're doing that yourself, you burn out. You burn out in the worst ways. And I've looked at Michelle Duggar, and she hit that long time ago. Lucky for her, her daughters started gaining a little age by the time she hit that I am having a nervous breakdown because I can't do it all anymore wall. Her daughters were older. I'm not saying what she did was right because clearly the parentification of children is never right. But at the same time, I can see how Michelle ended up just handing those kids off to their siblings. That's unfortunate. I think we're going to see a pile of those books eventually. I think that all of those kids, except for maybe Jessa, are eventually going to wake up and realize that this was not a very healthy way. It may take them until their 30s or 40s to come to that realization. I tell the story about reaching 35, 36, 37 years old before I realized that a lot of the things that I had grown up with in my family of origin were just positively sick. They're not normal in any way, shape, or form. Nobody drinks like that. Not every parent gets wasted. Not every cousin, uncle, grandfather, grandmother, not everybody fights and drinks like that. And I think that that's going to happen with them. And I feel bad for them, because when you hit that brick wall and you realize that everything you were taught as you were raised, all of the unspoken lessons that you took in were wrong. When you hit that wall, it's painful, and you're going to have to deal with that in your brain and come through the other side. Will she ever have a realization about how much her husband screwed her kids? Michelle or Anna, or maybe both. I don't know. I don't know if Michelle will ever reach that level of consciousness, because she is so heavily invested now into the whole lifestyle and making it a lifestyle brand and teaching it on TV and blogs and books and everything else. I don't think that Michelle will ever reach that point. I think that Michelle is always going to be double down. I don't see her ever reaching that point. And it's kind of funny, because my old Quiverfull church, I can show you two, count them, two Michelle's twins. I'm just going to call them that. They speak with the same soft voice, the same girly voice, the softy girly voice. They have the same number of children. They have the same theology, the same beliefs. Lisa, you're making me laugh. All men aren't alcoholics and all women aren't pill poppers like my relatives. What? I had to come to that realization too. I had to come to the realization that your mother locking you out all the time so she could get some rest or free time is not normal. You know, I look at kids today, and I don't know about you guys. I'm old. I know I'm older than dirt. I remember when I was a kid, during the summer especially, getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning, snatching some breakfast, out the door on the bike, out the door for the entire day. You might come in for lunch, you might not. You might find lunch elsewhere. You didn't come home till dark. And even then, sometimes you went right back outside with a popsicle in your hand. And I feel bad for kids nowadays. They miss that experience. I don't know if our parents were just foolish or if things were different back then. It must have been different. Must have been different. And I feel bad for kids that don't have that experience now. Going out for Halloween, going for miles, you know, go out with your friends, hit that neighborhood, go across town, hit this neighborhood. They miss all of that. And you know, sometimes I feel bad that I put my kids through Quiverfull, because there are definitely some things they missed that I've had to apologize to them for and try to incorporate after we left. But it was a painful, bumpy exit for all of us. It just was. And I can hardly imagine what it's going to be like for the Duggar kids, because at least in my family, I was still the sarcastic thing I am now. I was still a wisecracker. And my husband can tell you, there are times I whispered in his ear at church and made him laugh over something that was completely inappropriate. And I didn't push my kids to do a lot of the things that a lot of the people in my church did. But that still doesn't mean we didn't carry out damage, because we did. And I suspect that the damage in the Duggar clan is deep and vast. Just look at all the kids who have tried to launch themselves as businessmen with varying degrees of success, and how many of them are having to keep their hand out to Jim Bob to be funded. I mean, look at Jessa and her husband. Has he ever worked, or is it just all Jim Bob's handouts? I can't really determine. What do you think Derek may do legally or book-wise? I'm waiting to see. I can't figure out if Derek is selling wolf tickets or if he is honest to God thinking about doing this. He's talked about he became a lawyer because of everything that happened. he's talked about that. Okay. He's talked about writing the book, but I've seen no forward action. He did finally pass his bar exam this year, so that's good. My house growing up was right next to a park. Oh, yes. Barbara, that would have been fabulous. Yeah, I forgot about that, Amy. He is an ordained pastor. I know that Derek has been talking with KJ, but Jan, let me clue you into something. He is not consistently talking to KJ. He comments every now and then on her Twitter or Instagram. I think he's exchanged emails 2 or 3 times with her, because there was a point where he was going out and he was speaking out a lot. He was going out to different bloggers, video bloggers. He was doing interviews talking about this stuff. But I think his interactions with KJ have been limited. She makes a lot of nonsense and noise about having all these sources. And invariably, I'm sure there are some people that she's talked to that she takes as sources. I'm going to say this again. I'm going to say this loud and proud. I shared with her a lot about the IBLP and the ATI and about the Duggars and the Pray the Gay Away camps, and which ones were likely the ones that went, which ones were rumored to have various things going on, which ones were rumored to have been forced to get married. And she took all of that. And I told her at the time, I said, these are all rumors. There's nothing to substantiate this. This is what has been said. She took all those things that I told her and shared them as gospel evidence, proof of anything going down. And I was pretty horrified by that, because I told her when I told her, I said, don't share. Number 2, the other thing is all this is unsubstantiated. This is unnamed Duggar insiders, that big group of people that were contacting both of us. Like, I remember a point where we both got contacted and sent pictures of police cars at the Duggar house. There's been things like that have happened that neither of us have said much about. KJ thinking, who should I say is my source? Me, myself, or I? Those are her sources, and her sources are also from Reddit. She uses a lot of Reddit. She's used a lot of stuff that she talked to me about. She's used Reddit. We both had some of the same unnamed Duggar insiders contacting us that contact the tabloids. When I was contacted, it's like, that's very interesting. Thank you. But if I could not substantiate any part of the rumor, I never used it at NLQ and No Longer Quivering, because I have at least a little bit of, I try to have a little bit of integrity. I have to look at myself in the mirror every night, every morning. So I try to make sure that I'm not too sleazy about it. I try to make sure. I mean, she has to provide her sources in discovery in one of her lawsuits. It'll turn out she sends something to herself from a sock account to try and ship and claim. John, I can see that happening. And I don't know what to think right now about the lawsuits. The one with Todd Chrisley is set to go forward. They've already announced a date for jury trial. And there's some of us who've talked about going to watch the trial. I may well do it. I'm free. I can fly anywhere in the world I want. I may well do it. I don't know. We've all talked about it, a number of people. That should be interesting, because I know she's in discovery with at least 2 of the lawsuits. The 7M one that just popped up recently is going to be a mess. I'm hoping that the Duggars sue her. This latest release of her taking those documents that were just released to the public, and reading them and just creating all kinds of drama and hash from them, and coming up with all of this stuff all the time saying, you know that this is happening. I hope someone has popcorn for the circus or lawsuits will be. John, I am icing down my bougie water, and I have lots and lots of popcorn to watch this. I've gotten so annoyed with her coverage and the coverage of so many of the caters of Pitchfork Nation and how they're outing all this information, especially about the Holt young lady now. She's not a public figure. They should not be reading her deposition out loud like that. IBLP contacted her too, right? Yes, they did. They told her to take down the photographs that she had posted from their camps because there were minors involved, and she did not have the permission of the parents of those kids to post the pictures. And those children are not celebrities. Even the Duggars are only like borderline celebrities. I'm really shocked that the Duggars have not come after about that, because when I was writing about them for Pathos, every single time I used a photo of them, a screenshot off of a clip or any little thing, they would send a cease and desist to Pathos telling me to leave their photographs alone from their website or from TLC or whatever. Hey, Norma. Yeah, I finally got back on. I finally fixed it, finally figured out what was wrong and finally reset everything. And here I am. I dealt with this on a regular basis, right up until the point that I went to a Duggar book signing. I think it was 2014. I took 10 trillion pictures and used them. And the first time the Duggars tried to say, you can't use those pictures, it's like, yes, I can. I took the photographs. I hold the copyright on it. Okay, I got to do something with this because this is driving me insane. Having long hair during hot weather is a pain in the rear. It just is. I'm hot all the time. It doesn't help that I went out to the sun today for a long. Figured it out. I contacted YouTube and said, hey, what's going on here? Why can't I do this? Thank you so much, Jackie, my yarn fund. Since I'm going back next month to the States, I'm blowing all my money. I've been saving it up, blowing it on all kinds of yarn. And then I'm going down to my mother in the New Orleans area, and she has bought me a bunch of yarn. So I'm coming back with probably 2 suitcases of yarn. At this rate, the airline's going to hate me by the time I show up with all my suitcases, because I have 50,000 trillion things to buy when I get back to the States. This will be my first crazy buying trip in a long, long time. Everything from underwear, car parts, yarn, you name it. So the thing with the Duggars, like I said, leave those girls alone, leave their depositions alone, leave a Holt girl alone. I'm going to be watching, and I'm going to be noting who it is that is making hay of the sunshine with what this is, because this is really, this is one of the things that I hate about our society. Oh, thank you, Jan. Thank you. I'll be getting more. I'll get the fancy stuff this time. We have a yarn store here in Tamarindo. It opened. It was beautiful. I bought some yarn, and it was extremely overpriced and not very good quality. So I haven't been back. I have to take a quick to show you this. I'm working on a bag because I don't have any purses that are big enough for what I need. I'm working on this. It's my newest thing, and that's all my leftover yarns from the yarn store here. The Holt girl alone. If you want to talk about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. Go on and talk about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. Go to town. Do body language posts left and right. Talk about Amber if you want her. That's all fair game. They're celebrities. They are publicly holding the trial. It's being filmed. That is fair game. If you want to talk about folks, do that. Talking about reading the depositions of girls that are talking about some of the worst days of their lives should not ever be fair game. That should be one of those things that you just cringe away from. And I think that's the thing that I don't like about the way some people handle their coverage on YouTube. It's one thing to go talk about these things in a gentle way, or to say, hey, that's not right, and this is why it's not right, or to have compassion. It's like, I'm seeing so many people wanting Amber Heard's head on a stick, and all I can think is, yeah, she's really screwed up. But you know something? I'm looking at her and all of her diagnoses and just kind of feeling sorry for her, because she'll never have a true human experience, I don't think, with those diagnoses. She's missing out on so much stuff. And I don't know if she'll ever get treatment, the right treatment to overcome this stuff. And I feel bad for her too, because she had a horrible crush on Johnny Depp as a teen and tried to act on that, and it didn't go her way, because she built this up in her mind as being something that it was not. I really think that that is one of those things. Because back to the other day, I was talking about super fans. When you build up that super fan fantasy in your mind and it doesn't go that way when you meet your idol, Panadol with caffeine. Jackie, you and I are simpatico. I buy that all the time here. And my husband can tell you, always keep a giant box of Panadol Sinus, because it's actually the best stuff you could imagine. Actually, I'm glad the trial coverage is on hold this week. It's nice to have a break from it. John, absolutely. Absolutely. It's nice to have a break from it. And like I said, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't like one of them more than the other as far as going into this. Now, I think Amber has done some really horrible stuff that's come to light. I'm just watching this going, oh, holy cow. But I didn't come into this with a dog in either fight or a fandom for either one. I enjoyed Johnny Depp and Crybaby in a lot of different movies. I've seen a couple of Amber Heard movies I liked, but I didn't realize what a crappy actress she was until she got on the stand. I took my empty suitcase to Puerto Rico thinking I was going to have time to shop for clothes and shoes, but I didn't. Jackie, my daughter has moved to suburban Maryland. There aren't any of the stores I like around. I'm pre-shopping for everything online. Everything will be delivered to her house, and I'll pick it up and load my suitcases. And I know that when I get down to Louisiana with my mother lives for shopping. So all I have to do is say, I might need a white blouse, and off we go until with a new wardrobe. JD is lucky she's such a crappy actress. Yes, he is. What he had to say on the stand was pretty horrific, but watching her on the stand and listening to what her therapist said has just been horrifying. And the pettiness of some of the things that went on, the whole finger slicing, the SHIT in the bed, the running away to go stay in another house because you had a fight because you didn't show up for a birthday party. I mean, I'm looking at this and going, yeah, maybe there's some fault in both directions. Oh, Norma, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I live overseas. I live in Costa Rica, Tamarindo. I live in Tamarindo. We retired here almost 5 years ago. In fact, in less than a month, it will be my 5-year anniversary for getting here. He was already here 5 years ago. We retired here because we were kind of not happy with the way society in the U.S. was going. Here I am talking about societal things. I'm talking about this 24-hour news cycle. Everybody wants to know every damn thing and everything. They are both toxic, but I think she's worse. Yes, Jackie, that's what I think. Muy bonito. Yes, I wish, Benito. Yes, I wish I spoke Spanish better too, but I still think I speak Spanish more, better than the person that brags they have a Spanish degree that we all know. So yeah, it's a really nice place living here, and it's so peaceful and quiet. But the pandemic has done a number here. We're still having rising rates here. Going on YouTube to talk about these things has been a great, great, great therapy session. I got Spanglish. I definitely have Spanglish. And sometimes that Spanglish can be really funny. Like the other day when the guy came here who does some of our work for us and tried to recruit me to, which church is this? Seventh-day Adventist. He speaks 99% Spanish. I speak 95% English. Well, actually, that's not true. I just speak German and a couple other languages, but I don't speak Spanish very well. And defamation lawsuit. Now, you know, I'm going to have to look that up and name her different defamation lawsuits. With defamation lawsuit in Spanish, uno, dos, tres. Oh, so there's that. And sometimes I do talk about moving to Costa Rica because there are a lot of really crazy cultural things. I like to tell the tale of the time that we arrived in Cope de Dota, where we lived for 4 months. My husband was teaching at a school that was linked to the Peace Corps. They were teaching kids in this rural, impoverished village how to speak English, and they were giving away a scholarship at the end of the year. It's the same thing he's involved in here. I got there and was like, the first day I went to the landlord lady and I asked her for hand towels and washcloths in Spanish and the top sheet to the bed. She didn't know what I was talking about. I mean, that's how rural this place was. She didn't know what a hand towel, a washcloth, or a top sheet were. So I was kind of like, okay. I whipped out my crochet hook and some yarn and made myself a spa cloth, a couple of them to use instead of washcloths, and just waited my time out there. My hometown is the capital of Puerto Rican. Pentecostals. Oh my goodness. There are a few here. There's a church near here called Casa Vida that I've been to a handful of times. I have American friends that go there. I have Costa Rican friends that go there. And it is, let's see, I would call it like Assemblies of God or Pentecostal if I had to call them something. They call themselves non-denominational. Every sermon comes with a heaping helping of you're going to burn in hell. Every sermon, English, Spanish, you're going to burn in hell because you're so sinful. And I have a friend that goes there. I sometimes call him the Craven Billionaire. I have some tales about him too. And after the Christmas service, he said, well, what did you think for Christmas Eve? Because they do a big tamale dinner. And the sermon is given in English, Spanish simultaneous, even though they could probably do Spanglish and we don't get it. And I had to tell him, it's like, you know, Christmas is like Easter. It's the one time you're going to see the Easter, Christmas, marrying and burying folks, the people who won't go to church except on those dates. Do you really want to throw hellfire, damnation, and all that other crap at them? Do you really want to make them feel that way? Be welcoming. Be welcoming to them. Help them. Don't threaten them with damnation and hellfire in the Christmas message. I couldn't get over that. To me, that was one of the craziest things I'd ever seen. And yeah, I was not amused. Jim goes to a real non-denominational loosey-goosey kind of place where they don't really have subtle theology. And sometimes I go and I take notes, and I'll have to read you my sermon notes because some of them are kind of funny. There was one where the guy said something really ridiculous, and then sometimes they do. Hellfire, sign me up. Merry Christmas. Yes. At least this place, there's no hellfire, but there's a whole lot of, I don't want to call it Joel Osteen, but it's kind of, the upbeat kind of, this is my Bible. It is what it says. I is what it says I is. It does what it says, and all that. So it's all positive. Positive, positive, positive. And that's okay, but sometimes I wander in some very weird places and I get a kick. I used to go to Roman Catholic Church until they got a new priest who was hellfire and damnation type. Oh, Lordy. I'm shocked the Catholics have that. I used to like to go to the Catholic Church in Copeta Dota before it burned to the ground, that is. And I got the biggest kick out of a, he is Christian Light. I got the biggest kick out of a priest they had that was from Tanzania. His Spanish was about like mine. He would have to write his homily down and read it in Spanish. And he's speaking so slowly and distinctly, I had no problems understanding him. The regular dudes, I got some of it, but not all of it. But when the Tanzanian priest spoke, I could easily get what he was saying. And then the church burned down. 200-year-old church, all wood, beautiful, carved, historical books, burned to the ground in 45 minutes. And it took 45 minutes for the fire department to get up over the mountains from the nearest big town. There wasn't much they could do. Hey, just saying. So it took them all that time to get there. There wasn't much they could do at that point. And I have to leave you with this. I have to tell you the tale of what happened when that happened. After that happened, I'm thinking, this happened on like a Saturday night. Several days later, they're getting together. The priest is out there in the street. I'm watching this going, what are they going to do now? Because it's not like they have a lot of buildings that big in the whole town. It's a tiny village. The guest house I was staying in was right next to the church, so it almost caught on fire. We had to run in the streets with our passports and our wallets. I mean, literally. But thankfully, it did not burn to the ground. I saw everybody in town gather around this priest in the street and join hands. And it was like a moment out of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. It came without buzzers and noise and tinkles. It was pretty damn inspiring. It was one of those, I think, Holy Spirit moments that I've seen. And I feel privileged to have witnessed that. It was pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. It happens a lot in Spanish Latin churches. They cover up by saying non-denominational, start with these sermons are interceding and trying to pray your demons out. And Jackie, I know I've seen that too at a number of them. So far, they haven't mentioned demons at Casa Vida that I know of. My old church, it was Demon City by the time we left, and that's what ran my husband off. He was just kind of. Yes, Barbara, I'm excited about that. Emily D. Baker is at 331,000 subscribers. That could not be more awesome. I will listen to. She's a attorney, and having an attorney reading legal documents is a whole different ballgame than having a shut-in from Minnesota reading them and reading them poorly. Do you think Josh spent too much time outside Jim Bob and Michelle's bedroom growing up? Terry C., I don't think that helped. Does anybody remember the episode of 19 Kids and Counting where they were at a mini golf course, and the next thing you know, Jim Bob is coming up behind Michelle and almost humping her ass in front of everybody out in public? I was pretty jaw-dropped by that, and I think I turned to my husband and said, if you ever do that, I will kick your ass in public. I expressed some pretty major, there's nothing there like permission. It's just crazy, crazy, crazy. I would have loved to be a fly on KJ's wall as she saw Emily DeBaker's numbers They didn't just climb past her, John. They shot past her at the speed of light. I would have liked to have been that too. X-rated putt-putt golf. Yes, that's what happened. It happened on the show. That was so bizarre and so weird. And I think if you are mini golf on, yes. So I think if you're constantly making out with each other in front of your kids, like Michelle and him seem to do, and keep talking about sexy fun times are just for married people, and if you're not married, you're not allowed to think about it. But you're showing off in front of them all the time. How do you even, do that in your mind? And so much of evangelical Quiverfull is so focused on sex. I'm just going to come right out and just scream that out. They do seem decent, Jackie. I agree with you there. They need to keep their putter in their pants in public. Yeah, that clip. Oh, cringe, throw up. So you have your parents doing this. You have a society around you that tells you that any sexual thought is sinful if you aren't married, that you're not allowed to have those thoughts, those feelings. And then you hit puberty and your body is going haywire. You're being flooded with all these sex hormones and your mind keeps going into these dirty places as you're developing. I've told this story a bunch of times about at my old church that we had a kid during a deliverance ministry weekend, a conference, come up and brag that Jesus had healed him of masturbation. Okay. He talked about his masturbatory practices in great detail. This 14-year-old kid talked about how horny he was all the time. He talked about how many times a day he self-molested. His favorite size to look at women's breasts. I mean, he just went into gross detail like you would not believe, and saying, Jesus has healed me. I've been delivered of my sins, washed away. And it was so awful. It was so awful. I kept looking over at our pastor because I was a worship team. And usually what happened is if we had somebody that during testimony time got off the deep end, or they started giving some really strange prophecy that made no sense, or they just went off into the weeds, the pastor would strike up the band and we would just roll on top of whoever it was and drown them out. It never happened. So for 20 minutes, this kid went on and on and on in great detail. And I started wishing the floor would swallow us all. Afterwards, my preteen son said, "What was that all about?" My daughter said, "What was that all about?" And we had to have some really uncomfortable conversations, including saying, masturbation is normal when you are a teenager, when you have those hormones percolating. Those thoughts are normal. It's not sinful. You're not going to go to hell because you're thinking about boobs. One of the things that is one of my biggest regrets about leaving my old church is I really wanted to go up to that kid and say, "Kid, you are 100% normal. Those are normal feelings to have. That's normal behavior to want to self-molest all the time." He was only 14. They moved away shortly after that, and I never really got the chance to, and I was afraid to anyway, because I was afraid that if I did that, I would be called up on the carpet by the pastor. As it was, I had rug burns for being how I am. So that would have just not ended well for me. So that really happened. That happened at our church, and it was just crazy, but it wasn't super unusual. So much time is spent avoiding sex and talking about avoiding sex, and the whole purity culture thing focuses on sex to such a great degree that it forces you to think about it. I've said this when I was going there. It's like, why are we spending so much time thinking and talking about sex? Because people outside the church don't think about it and talk about it as much as everybody in the church does. Reminds me of a song as I heard as a kid. This is, yeah. John, that would be about the truth. So this ended up in creepy territory. And on the other end, I had to talk about when my daughter started following a gender roles promoter and promoter of courtship only model guy by the name of Justin Lookadoo, or as he's lovingly known on Twitter now, Lookadoosh. He wrote a book called Are You Dateable? That my daughter read. We saw him at a youth conference. I wasn't impressed, but Laura was. She said, "Can I have that book?" So I said, yeah, sure. And when I later read the book, and it said that girls are supposed to talk softly and never speak up and just be gentle and sweet all the time, and men are supposed to be dangerous and rough and and so that was what was going on in this stupid book. I started trying to talk to her about it, and she was just like, "No way, I'm straight edge. I'm nothing but for courtship." And I've told this story before about how when she was in ninth grade, I'm straight edge. I'm nothing but for courtship. And I've told this story before about how when she was in ninth grade, a little boy that had a crush on her, I shouldn't say little boy, young man who had a crush on her, gave her a rose and a little inexpensive piece of jewelry and a box of chocolates, and she gave him right back and said that she wasn't going to do crushes or any of that. She was waiting for Mr. Right. She wasn't ready to do any of that until she reached the age where she knew she wanted to marry and she would have a courtship. And that just broke my heart, because learning to deal with crushes. Oh my gosh, at first fluttering in your heart when you're looking at somebody thinking, wow, that chemistry when you meet those people. Yeah, exactly. Rosie Palm is your best friend. Yes, exactly. Safe. All those great feelings. I remember my first boyfriend around the same time as she was having this experience. I remember those feelings of confusion, not being afraid of what he wanted and all these other things. Going out in group dates with groups of kids to go bowling or whatever, going out on double dates, all of that, where you learn how to deal with the opposite sex. You learn to deal with, well, even now you got to say same sex. You learn to deal with whatever your sexual preference is, those people. You learn how to get along with them. And I think that's an important part of development. I told her that then. I told her, I said, I think you're cutting off a whole pile of experiences by going courtship only. Norma Jean, I know a lot of pastor kid stereotype, including my own grandfather. My great grandfather was a Methodist circuit rider in Louisiana in a Piro. His son was wild. My grandfather was a wild man until the day he died. He just made me laugh because he was always getting into something not good. That's Manuela in Spanish. Oh, so yeah. So that's, I think that when the Duggars did this, when they told their kids no thinking about sex, and they shut them down when they were going through puberty, they did them a lot of harm. And that's even before looking at the fact that there was none of this where you learn to deal with the opposite sex, same sex, whatever. You learn to deal with whatever your preference is. You learn how to cope with people from all walks of life. You miss that. And oh yeah, he was definitely a PK. He used to work at the Jack's Brewery in New Orleans, there on Decatur Street, I think it is. he used to tell me tales of they would give them a stainless steel bucket when they went to work there, and as much beer as you could drink before you went to work, on your coffee break, on lunch break, after you got off, you were welcome to it. And to the day he died, he liked his beer. Make me laugh. Little kid, 5 years old, asking him why he's having a quart bottle of beer with his coffee first thing in the morning. Yeah, so there's that. Wild man. Wild man, wild man. And I can see I've spoken over an hour. My voice is getting ready to go. I just want to hop on here and say, look, let's not do that. Let's not re-victimize the Duggar girls. Let's not rehash what the Holt woman said. Let's just leave all that alone. If you want to look and talk about crap, look at or make fun of Amber Heard. Hand means mano. So you boys see Manuela. Yes, yes, yes. Off topic. KJ is hammering Ginger and her husband about ghostwriting. I saw that. And here's the thing. A lot of celebrities may have compelling stories to tell, but let's face it, a lot of them are not natural writers. So it's normal to bring in someone who is a natural writer who can craft a cohesive narrative of their stories. I don't think there is any shame in that at all. And we all know she's not qualified to do that. So that's enough said. Amber Turd's legacy, me poo. Yeah, John, that to me was the shocker of the whole trial. When I read about that, I was like, what? Okay, I just move his stuff around if I want to get back at him. If he's irking the heck out of me, I just put his socks over here instead of over here. Let him search for them and scream. I don't crap in the bed. You have to figure out ways to deal with your passive aggressiveness that aren't harmful, like going out in the garden and digging up the flower bed, not taking that aggression out on your partner. Norma Jean, I've written stuff for people too. I haven't done an entire book by ghostwriting, but I think I'm eventually probably going to be doing that for somebody here eventually. I'm still working on my Quiverfull book, and boy, it is a doozy, and rehashing everything I went through has been quite the emotional experience. That's what kills me about when KJ has told parts of my story as her own. Yeah, I figured you were saying the crapping, the writing, not the crapping in the bed. Who does that? I peed on a roommate's car once when he really ticked me off, but I can't imagine dumping deuce in someone's bed. Yeah. Oh, doing well. Now, I did have a girlfriend that we worked at a warehouse with men, and they were hateful to us, who shrink wrapped the urinals one day. And I laughed over that. I watched her do it, and I laughed. I was a lookout. We saw a lot of guys walking around that day with wet pants legs, and that was hysterical. Ginger alone made over 100K last year. But I'm sure she goes 2 crafts back. KJ's made over 100K last year. But I'm sure she goes 2 crafts back. KJ's yammering. Yeah, I'm sure. Hammering. Yeah, I'm sure she doesn't. She did rip me off. She ripped me off hard in one of her stories. She's ripped me off before. She's ripped off my writing from NLQ. She ripped off my life story in one of her things. She's given 3 or 4 different versions of her story at church, 3 or 4, and one of them was mine, word for word. And I was pretty shocked and it was like heartache to hear my words coming out of her voice, in her voice. So, John, I can see doing that. I can see peeing on something. I can't see dropping a deuce. Like, you're right. How would you do that? Why would you do that? Do you think Jim Bob will say or do anything about the release of these documents that make him look pretty bad? I believe there'll be a Jim Bob offensive, or he tries to prove what a great guy he is here shortly. He either shuts up or he does something to try and prove what great people they are. I once worked at a store where some of the guys wrapped shrink wrap around a jerk manager's car in the summertime. Ooh, John, that's pretty crazy. I worked with someone that bragged on their car that were pretty awful. Somebody else put a piece of bologna on their car in mid-July summer heat. It took the finish off. Bologna, I did not know that, but in extreme heat, it will take the finish off the car. Throw a bologna slice on there. Don't tell them I told you to do this, though. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go. I really am losing my voice now. I love you guys. I miss this. I miss being able to talk to everybody and just rant and tell crazy stories.